Hello, everyone. Sorry, I just need to put on my chat screen. Awesome, cool. And here we go. Let's get into this. Creating your next chapter. Hi, and welcome. My name is Leo, and let's dive into the stuff that we've got around your next chapter. So we've had a lot of direct messages in the background, and how do you actually do this? So I'm going to take a lot of, since I've organized this event and set it up, there's been a lot of change. And so how do we do this? How do we go forward in terms of our next chapter and creating it? Now, there are essentially 5 phases that you go through. And we're going to dial into these 5 phases. And I don't want to give you sort of like an intellectual process because it's not really going to show a lot of value into your life. Sorry, I'm getting a tech issue at my end here. Of course, always tech issues. Gotta love that. All right, cool. Anyway, so these 5 phases that you essentially go through here, we're gonna do that, but not on an intellectual level. I'm gonna walk you through a process to help you own what you're going through, where you're going to, and really have an amazing life that you absolutely love. Now, the first thing that I do want to give you a caveat around is that 95% of people, I would even say it's 99, but I'll just keep it at 95% of people actually fail in creating a life that they love. They go through a reset. I even got a comment on one of my posts this morning around even their comment was like, I'm one of the few that can hit rock bottom and come out the other side. Like most people don't have the capacity or the bandwidth, but it's mostly they just don't have the skills to be able to get the other side. They might have the willingness, but they just can't seem to get out the other side because they don't have the skills and that to come into play. Like you can have the willingness and fight your way through stuff, but if you don't have the skills, you're not going to get to the other side. That's just kind of the reality of that particular piece. So let's dive in here. So the first phase that people get through is the discovery phase. And so in terms of discovery, this is when, holy moly, something in my life is off. I got to sort this out. I got to deal with this. I got to get to that next level and, make shit happen and so forth like that. So something's off. How do you deal with this? How do you even figure out what's off in yourself and that kind of direction? I'm going to have you create a visual as we go through this process today. And I want you to kind of practice. This will be your practice in supporting you in kind of owning this. So the visual in here is I want you to kind of look at your life in a year, 5 years from now, and start to imagine that out in front of you, what that looks like. And I just want you to start from 30,000 feet off the ground right now with this perspective. And I'll get deeper as we go through this particular live today. So anyways, imagine what that's like in a year from now, 5 years from now, after having gone through this chapter, this new transformation that's going on in your life. So that's the discovery phase. So we'll get deeper and deeper into here. Now, when you go forward in your life, you deal with backlash, you deal with inner criticism, you deal with doubt, you deal with uncertainty. I'm even going through some stuff right now of like, I've been wrapping my head around something. How do I actually do this? And then I'm like, okay, what's my process? Hey, Tara, thank you. Have a nice day as well. And what is my process and how can I integrate this? I teach this. I'm like struggling, grappling. I'm like having like such a wicked inner tantrum inside of myself, like this hostility. I was like, this isn't me. What's going on? And so what I actually started to realize, I had a lot of childhood stuff getting in my way of being able to get to the next level where I want to get through with the particular part of my business. And it was just like stuck. It was like right in my face, like literally how my hands are right now. And I can't see how to, get through this. What do I do? So you redesign stuff. That's the kind of essentially the second phase that goes on is basically redesign. And so if you have that visual out in front of like, what does your life look like in a year from now that I asked you to do a couple of minutes ago? How do you get from point A to point B? Now, here's one of the kind of things that's really critical here is your level of intention. Now, if you want to have an absolutely amazing life that you love in a year from today, and if you're going through a new chapter and you want to have it to be absolutely amazing, you got to have your level of intention, your level of willingness needs to be greater than what you're up against. That's bar none. You cannot get to the other side without your level of intention or willingness to kind of counter what you're up against. So you may have been through challenges in your life and maybe the challenges are like 40 parts, just to give an analogy here. And your intention, your willingness to get through it was at a 60. So you got through it. Awesome. Cool. Now, if your challenge is now at 1,000 parts and your intention, your willingness is still at 60 parts to get through stuff, it just ain't going to cut it. You ain't going to make your way through that. That's part of the whole redesign process. Now, you can have an intellectual goal setting. You can create vision boards. You can create, manifesting rituals. You can set certain objectives. But if your intention, your willingness is to trumping what you're up against, there's no way you're going to pull it off. Maybe if you do happen to pull it off, it isn't going to last. You're going to lose it. You might move to a different city, start a whole new life, and do all sorts of different things. You're going to slowly find all the same old patterns show up. That's part of the redesign. You need to kind of figure out what's going on. So back to this visual of what your life is like in a year from now that you have out in front. What is in your life that exists? What do you have there that exists? Like, I want you to find a couple kind of anchor points. Maybe it's a communication. Maybe one of the things I like where I started a long time ago is just a simple symbol of reading a book a week. Now, it's kind of ridiculously simple, but reading a book a week takes time. It means I have time to be able to read a book a week. This is how I set off one of my redesigns is like, it's really simple, but how does that integrate into the rest of my life? As a business owner, if I can read a book a week, then that means I have a lot of time in being successful. There's all like the ripple effects of that. So it could be really simple. So I want you to kind of consider your life in a year where you're absolutely loving it. What is a simple thing that's there that you could anchor into that particular reality that is going on in your from today that would be different? That would be, evidence, if you will, that this transformation you're going through is actually valid, actually real, it's actually happening, that kind of stuff. What would be an anchor point in a year from today? And just want you to kind of consider that as we start to get deeper or closer and closer to the ground. We started at 30,000 feet. Now we're probably 25,000 feet off the ground here in the redesign phase. And let's move into the kind of elevation phase. So this is the third phase, is the elevation. So elevation is basically where you deal with anything and everything that's going to like hit you up against your walls, whether it's backlash from people, whether it's your internal kind of sensory fight or flight, like throwing you off. No way you're going to be able to pull this off, or whatever's going on. This is the phase where everything is going to test you. And this is where 80% of people fail, is the elevation phase. Is like they can't keep themselves elevated with what they've got being thrown at them. They've got this, they've got that, they've got all sorts of like crap in their head. They're wondering if they should go back to their old life, the toxic relationship or the toxic career or whatever. It's like, man, that was better than this. And, it's like all that kind of stuff. What am I thinking? All this kind of stuff when you're in the elevation phase. Now, this is probably the hardest phase to kind of really admit, for people to admit to themselves, is to like really look at the elevation phase. How do I actually do this? How do I navigate all the criticism? How do I deal with all this backlash? How do I deal with whatever all these changes that are going on in my life? How do I actually do that? That's the elevation phase. Now, there are a couple key components here. One is energy, and the other are emotions. So energy management and emotional management, and in that regard. So I'm going to walk you through a really simple like energy management thing. I mean, it's still 30,000 feet off the ground. We're doing a live here. I'm not working one-to-one with you, but there's a component here where I'm going to walk you through something that's really simple, visual, that you can do for yourself. Now, we've been working with this, what your life is like in a year from now, once you're through your next chapter and all that kind of stuff, and got to the second phase where there's like this simple activity that you're doing and you're anchoring it. It's like, for me, a number of years ago, was being able to read a book in a week, that kind of stuff, and what that symbolized more than the actual act of doing it, right? So whatever it might be in a year from now, if your life were ideal and perfect, you got through the next chapter, what does that look like? Now, I want you to have this out in front, this kind of visual. And you can turn inward, which means eyes closed or whatever, or eyes open, however you want to proceed with this. But what I want you to do is have this visual out front. And I want you to create what I call a grounding cord off of it. Now, this, you can imagine like a string off a helium balloon or something like that. And essentially with this grounding cord, or you can imagine tree roots or something like going deep into the earth, just like ground right down to the center of the planet. Now, in this space that you've got out in front, this kind of visual that you've got working on that you're working on out here is I want you to ground out other people's agendas. Now, this is the hardest one to actually deal with. Other people's agendas about what you're doing with change in your life when you're going through the next chapter, because they're impacted. If you're ending a relationship, if you're leaving a job, if you're creating something new in your life, you're kicking out old stuff from your head, your energy, your psychology, the people's stuff that you've taken on from, they have to start dealing with it. It's like the ripple effect, and they don't necessarily want to deal with it, right? And so I want you to create this grounding cord off this image that you've got out in front, and just ground out other people's agendas, just other people's junk that you've got going on in your space. Just ground it out. And so I want you to release that from this creation that you've got out in front. Now, this is really, really simple, and it's really profound and powerful the more you practice this. And essentially what this is called is energy clearing. Now, for some people, this might be way out in left field. This might be totally up your, like, oh, this is awesome. But I want you to just kind of postulate, if I could do this, if I could experience this, how might I be able to do this? And just run with it, go with it. And there's a lot going on in this moment, more than you realize. What you're consciously aware of is you're clearing off this dynamic from a year from today and what your life looks like. But there's a whole lot that's going on in here as you're clearing this out. And so this is kind of essentially a simple like elevation phase. You're clearing out other people's agendas, other people's energies that are focused on what you're doing in the elevation phase. And you can do this for all sorts of areas in your life, this particular exercise, and there's deeper tools that you can apply here, but this is kind of really simple, 10,000 feet off the ground that you can apply. And I want you to kind of take value with it and kind of elevate yourself through this process. And essentially this component here is grounding out other people's agendas that are in kind of your way. Now, the next phase here is authenticity. And this is the what's truer phase. So as you start to realize what's going on for yourself, as you start to elevate yourself, you start to ask yourself questions. What's truer? What's more real for myself in this situation? So I'm getting out of people's agendas and getting out of my own way, my own inner criticism, all the stuff that I've got going on in my own head. And you start to question yourself, essentially the what's truer. And you're starting to move away from problems and pain, and you're starting to move towards like pleasure. What is it you actually want out of your life? Like you're going through a reset, you're going through a new chapter. What is it that you actually want? Who do you want to be? What do you want to become? If you can reinvent yourself, create a new identity for yourself, what is actually truer for you here in this particular context? So that's the authenticity phase. Now, this is where 95% of people fail, or like even 99% of people fail, is the authenticity phase. People are often so wrapped in approval, so wrapped in acceptance from other people, ego, pride, getting things right or wrong or whatever, and they fail here. They get through the elevation phase, they start to build muscle around it, and they're like, yeah, I can do this. And then when it comes to actually being real and authentic and all these different components, is they have a real hard time with this particular piece around where do I find my authenticity? What's actually truer for me? And it takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of knowledge and getting to know yourself to like dig in and figure out who you are, because there's so much in our society about who we should be or should not be. Like, I'm a man, I should be this way, or I'm a woman, I should be this way, or I'm Canadian, I should be this way. This is like, Canadians are known to be nice. We, that kind of stuff. That's the kind of perspective. But what's actually your truth? I'm not to say you won't be nice or whatever, but like, what is actually your truth in terms of authenticity? And it can take a lot of getting stuff out of your head and getting out of your own head and discovering what really is your authentic truth. And so we have this visual out here that's going on about what your life is like in a year from today, whatever the symbol is. You create a grounding cord off of it. Now, you've probably heard the idea that visualizing is one of the most profound ways to really create impact and create change in your life. And there are very specific ways to do this. Anybody who is successful or high achiever, they visualize every single day. Like you can even think about this whenever you've been really obsessed or engaged in something and pulled off something like a project, you were thinking about it all the time. You were visualizing, you were seeing it happen. Even if you were considering it, visualizing or not, you were still thinking about it all the time and new ideas and new inspirations. That is visualization. Now, I'm going to ask you to have this kind of image that you have out front again. And I'm going to ask you to kind of split it up in a few different kind of chunks. And this might stretch you a little bit. And if it does, postulate, if I could do this, if I could experience this, how might I be able to do this? So I'm just going to ask you to do it like really simple kind of splitting. So you're going to split it into kind of parts. And you're going to pull out the one part that is actually truly you. And then you're going to leave everything else behind. So what I mean by that is other people's agendas, other people's ideas for you, other people's concepts about what you're going through, about who you are. Let's say your name is Jean or John or whatever, and everybody's ideas about who you are. When they think of Jane, when they think of John, they have this picture, this idea, this visual, and they project that onto you. It's like, oh, this is Jane, this is John, boom. And then that's everybody else's stuff. And then what I want you to do is kind of pull out your portion of what you're creating out in front. So it's kind of like you have two dynamics out in here. You have other people's external stuff about you, and then you have your own stuff. And just I want you to just pull that out in that visual. Keep the grounding cord that we were working on a couple minutes ago on the portion that's for you, and then have this other component just kind of like lay off to the side. And just notice what that's like to kind of separate your truth, your energy, and this your visual, your component separate from other people's stuff in this particular space. And again, if need be, postulate. If I could do this, if I could experience this, how might I be able to do this? And just go ahead and do it. Cool. And then go ahead and place the component for you off to the side. And I want you to place a component for everybody else's agendas and whatever stuff, everybody else's projections on you out straight in front. And I want this to be a mirror for you. A mirror for who these people think you are, the people's agendas, what you should do or not do. And I want you to allow that to be a mirror on your space. And like, the smudge, the hairy, or the messy hair, whatever's going on, and just let it be kind of a mirror going on. And just let it highlight in your space all that stuff that's going on. You might start to feel it in like little pinches in your heart, or, pressure on your shoulders, all the other people's kind of stuff that's going on. Just let that mirror that, let that highlight that. And just notice this experience of this when you have that kind of highlighted, other people's agendas, other people's stuff highlighted on you, and it's sort of like you're starting to become aware of it in your space. You might be aware of it in your head and your toes, wherever. Notice if you've ever experienced these types of feelings before, this pinch in your heart, this stress on your shoulders in a specific way. And when you might experience yourself like that. Just notice that. Those stresses, those pressures, those pinches, those different components going on. Just realize how long this has been going on for and how much this is impacting you. Just note that. And then go ahead and put that off to the side, the component of other people's agendas and whatever, and put that off to the side. Bring your component out in front, your portion out front. And then we're going to move into the last phase here. And this is mastery. And so mastery is basically everything all at once. Being able to have the discovery, the aha moments, what's going on, the redesign, starting to redesign your life, the elevation, keeping yourself elevated, and the authenticity, and then the mastery, being able to practice this all at the exact same time. So go ahead and have that component for you out in front again. And then put that to the side, and then go ahead and have that mirror out in front again, so to speak, that mirror, so to speak, of other people's stuff. And this time, you're going to let this be a magnet, and like a magnet for all those other people's stuff that's sitting in your space, and your agenda is about your next chapter, about what you should or shouldn't do. It's like a big giant magnet or vacuum. And just go ahead and let that big vacuum, that big magnet, suck all that stuff out of your space, out of your head, out of your psychology, out of your emotions, other people's agendas, strings attached about what you do or don't do in your life, and just put it out into that image out front. Great. And then go ahead and in a moment here, you're going to destroy that image, not the one for yourself, but the other people's agendas. And you're going to destroy it, basically like let it go, vaporize it, whatever you need to do. It's just going to be gone. And you're just going to return to sender, not from a vengeance, but just from like lost and found. Here you go. Goodbye. And go ahead and destroy that. Let it be gone. And then go ahead and bring that dynamic for you out in front again. Just notice how the vibration of that is different now that you've let go of the other people's stuff. And then allow that to be a reflection of what you're wanting to create, this new sense of identity, what's truer for you, sense of feeling elevated, and start to allow that to start to trickle through your space, that vibration of what you're creating for yourself. And essentially what you're doing here is embodying this vibration for you. And just notice what that's like. Try it on like a new pair of shoes. What does it feel like? And just notice that. And then as you do this, I want you to start to become aware of what I call the growth period, the period of growth that you're going to need to go through to make this happen in physical life. So on a being level, on an energy level, you just made this shift, this awareness of like, okay, this is what I want to create. This is who I am. This is where I'm going. And then on a physical reality level, your body's scrambling to catch up with you. That's a growth period. And so I want you to start to experience what your body's growth period is to kind of go through this. What is the period of growth that your body needs to go through? What are the emotions? What are the experiences? Does it seem heavy? Does it seem stuck? Does it seem exciting? And just give yourself the room to have that growth period. And this is what most people avoid, is the growth period. This is why they can't be authentic. They don't want to go through the change. They stay stuck in that kind of stuff, is they don't want to go through the growth period. They want all the change and transformation where they're at point B. But they don't want to go through the period of growth to get there. And so this feeling that you've got in your space, this growth period energy, this is what you need to own and claim and let it run its course, just like a cold or flu or whatever, to get through it so that you can get to the other side. And just give yourself permission to have your growth period. And just make a little deal internally with yourself to support yourself through your growth period. And there's 6 things that support your body through growth period: good food, fun, sex, exercise, plenty of sleep, and water. So those are those 6 things. And then let go of that image out front. Just let it all go. And then just take a big breath. And on the exhale, you can just move and adjust your body. That kind of stuff. Just feel your body's growth period and feel the growth period that you need to get through to make this happen. All right, so that is essentially maybe 5,000 feet off the ground, how you get through your next chapter and creating the next chapters. You need to go through these 5 phases: discovery, redesign, elevation, authenticity, and mastery. And just remind yourself, often bodies don't like to go through the growth periods just because change can be difficult, can be stressful, that kind of stuff. You need to persevere. You need to have your intention, your willingness stronger than what you're up against. If you're not allowing your willingness, your intention to be stronger than what you're up against, then there's no way you're going to make it happen. It just ain't going to happen, because you're going to quit at some point. And everybody wants to quit. Even the most successful people in the world face certain points where man, I'm done with this. I'm going to quit, that kind of stuff. just realize that you're not the only one in the same situation that you're in that's like facing doubts or quitting and that kind of stuff. You just need to like find that way, that little nook or that little cranny where you can navigate it. And yeah, I can do this kind of deal. All right. So anyway, as it goes, thank you for coming to the LinkedIn Live today. If you are looking for next step support in your next chapter, all that kind of jazz, you can book a call here. I'll just post it up on the screen. Yournextchapter.coach, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I hope that was useful, and give me some feedback in the comments section and all that kind of stuff. Come back to me in a couple of days if because growth periods and what you're doing here is actually really simple, but it's actually incredibly profound, and it kind of takes about 2 or 3 days to kind of, oh, that's what happened. Kind of deals. So anyways, come back, send me a DM or whatever. But if you're needing help immediately today, ready to get started, and want my support, go ahead and go to yournextchapter.coach. All right. Hope you're having a beautiful day. Peace.